Elden Ring, huh? Yeah, it can't be that hard. Whoa! Yo! Oh my god! Yo, I can't take this anymore. Your first Souls-like game can be quite a challenge. I remember when I first started up Dark Souls 3 and I had no idea on what I was doing. Here's a couple of tips for someone that's completely new to a game made from Software. Also, this video will contain very minor spoilers. All I'll be showing is the enemies you come across in the starting area and a few bits from the gameplay trailer. You can also just listen to this video as well if you want to avoid possible spoilers. The first tip is to stop mashing. As much as we want to keep swinging our swords or spam the dodge button, you need to learn to stop doing that. Later down the line, as you fight various bosses or even some enemies, if you try to spam your attacks or dodges, you're literally telling the AI to kill you. Pace yourself. Match your attacks and dodges with your enemy's attacks so that you can eventually kill them while minimizing any hits from the enemy. Even I get a little greedy when attacking a boss, so I also gotta learn to just chill sometimes. Also, don't expect to instantly get the hang of not mashing. It will take an extremely long time to not mash your buttons and time your dodges and attacks with every enemy. They all have their own timings, so keep on analyzing their attack patterns and see what can be punishable or not. I still spam the dodge button when I get hit because I'm just panicking and I want to make sure to dodge the next attack. Or when an enemy does an attack that has a long wind up before hitting you, I tend to just spam the dodge button, hoping that I don't get hit. Then I obviously get slapped and instantly die. I just gotta be patient and time my dodges with the enemy's attacks. Now obviously you can go ahead and keep swinging your attacks, especially if the enemy gets stunned by them. But just remember to be careful when you run out of stamina. You won't be able to dodge without it. Number 2, think about what class to use. As soon as you start up the game, you need to take into consideration which class you would like to use. Each class has their unique stats that will determine what kind of weapon you'll be using throughout your time playing the game. Take for example, the warrior class has high dexterity, meaning that they'll be able to hold weapons with a high requirement in dexterity. It can also help with reducing cast time of spells, softening full damage, and you'll be harder to knock off when you're on a horse. Or how about Astrologer, which has the highest intelligence stat compared to the others, meaning that they'll be able to use spells that require high intelligence. Now you can change your stats as you play through the game, but just know that it will take a longer time to change your stats around. Like, you can try to make your character hold a greatsword and be a magic user, but I'll talk about it in my next tip. Out of all the classes that are there, I would probably recommend the samurai class for a new player. This is because you're a literal samurai. Do you know how cool that is? You got the power of God and enemy inside. Okay, but for real though, the reason why this is a good class is because the sword that you have can inflict bleed to your enemies. Bleed or blood loss is good for taking out a chunk of health, but the enemy can only get inflicted by the status effect when you built enough bleed to an enemy, meaning that you will have to constantly hit the enemy to build up this effect. Once bleed kicks in, say goodbye to a chunk of their health. Number 3, carefully choose the right stat to increase. There are 8 stats that you can increase. You can easily see how increasing a stat will influence your character's overall build. Now, as I said with the classes, some of these stats will have been increased already. This is so that you can easily get a head start with using some weapons or spells. However, if you ever feel like it, you can increase another stat so that you can wield a specific weapon. Just be careful though, because every time you increase a stat, more runes will be required for you to increase the next stat. Which is why you might need to be careful when you decide to invest in a particular stat. As I already mentioned, you can be a greatsword and a magic user, but depending on what class you've selected, you will have to invest in a particular stat for you to either wield a weapon or use a spell. This is because some weapons or spells require a specific stat for you to hold that weapon or use a spell. You can wield a weapon that is out of your requirement range, but you will get a warning message telling you can't use the weapon properly, which means that you won't be able to deal the best damage. Instead, you'll be dealing less damage. You might also find a time where you increase a stat and it doesn't increase the stat you want. You just have to increase that stat or another stat again for that particular stat to increase. For example, when I increased my strength, the attack power of my right arm didn't increase. Instead, the left arm and attack power increases. In this case, all I have to do is either increase my strength again or increase my dexterity. Number 4. Not every enemy needs to be defeated at the start of the game. This is an open world game, so if you find an enemy that you can't defeat, then just go to another area. Defeat some lower tier enemies or enemies that are easy to kill, and just use those runes to increase your attributes. The more you increase your stats, the easier it is to defeat enemies that are hard to kill. Basically just farm some enemies and you'll eventually stock up on runes. Granted that you don't get killed twice somewhere and lose your XP. I lost 9,000 XP somewhere thanks to a simple enemy. Thank you, game. It's much better to just move on and level up some more, rather than just waste a long time fighting something that you could easily kill if you had increased your stats some more. Number 5. Do not rush the game. I'm about 24 hours in the game and I still haven't defeated one of the main bosses. I have defeated a bunch of other bosses, but I still haven't touched the main boss. I'm just exploring the world and taking my time while gaining XP points, weapons, armor, and items. Eventually, when I think I'm confident enough, I will go back to the main route and kill the boss. I did go back to see the amount of damage that I'm dealing against the main boss, and I would say I can defeat it as long as I don't mess up. Also, I'm doing much more damage than the last time I fought it. I was at an extremely low level when I first fought the main boss, and the damage I was dealing was stupidly low. I could try insanely hard to kill it with the tiny damage that I'm dealing to eventually kill him, but that would cause so much stress and time that I would probably drop the game. If you try to rush the game, all you're doing is making the game hard for yourself. And listen, we all don't have the time in the world to be trying for days on end on a single boss. Just stop and go and explore the beautiful open world. See all the weird stuff that the game has to offer, and then once you picked up more XP, weapons, armor, and items, then you can think about fighting the main boss and progress the game. Finally, the 6th point is that it's okay to die. Dying in games can feel very disheartening, especially in Elden Ring or Souls-like games overall. However, what I can say to you is that you should think about it as a learning experience. Use the many times that you died to figure out why you're having a hard time fighting an enemy. It might be because you're not dealing enough damage, and in that case, I would go and level up. Or maybe you just need to figure out its attack patterns and see where you can damage them without taking too much of a risk. I don't want to hear you crying about this game being too hard. You just need to sit down and think about how you can make the fight easier throughout all the times you've died. And those were my tips. To be honest, I'm actually way more than 24 hours in the game. I have defeated the first boss as well, so yeah, everything is all fine. I just need to go find the other bosses now. Anyways, I hope you guys found this video useful in some way. Be sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and I shall see you guys later.